Okay, hi everybody. It's 6:10, so let's get started. There's someone taking pictures, but they're just taking pictures. It's not like it's just a regular camera. It's not gonna hurt you. But yeah, is there anything else that I should say? If you, yeah, it's for a German business magazine. So someone in Germany will see your face, I guess. Yeah. Woo, more people. Okay, today's lecture is very exciting. I think it's the best lecture because it's like a nice overview of everything that we've covered this semester. We're going to do a course summary. Hopefully it doesn't take longer than like 10 to 15 minutes. And then I have a little story that I'm going to read to you by Max, and it's like a vision of a blockchain future where, everything is peer-to-peer and all that. It'll be fun. Then we'll talk about problems with the blockchain space and what needs to be solved before all these blockchain-enabled features in the future are able to happen. And then I'm going to tell you how you can get involved in the blockchain space. So, course summary. This is very fun. We're going to do this. We started out by talking about what we really mean by peer-to-peer. And what we said was we're not talking about Venmo, we're talking about something truly decentralized, which was introduced in 2008 by Satoshi Nakamoto as Bitcoin. We introduced the buzzwords that you've heard over and over again, but never really got an explanation to why is Bitcoin anonymous, why it's decentralized, what trustless really means, and why Bitcoin is immutable. Hopefully by now you're able to thoroughly explain these and sometimes debunk them. Then we compared Bitcoin with traditional banking and transaction systems, and we showed that they essentially function the same way. It's just that Bitcoin involves less trust. This included identity management, in which Bitcoin has private and public keys, transactions, in which Bitcoin has a protocol involving UTXOs, but other cryptocurrencies have different models, a distributed ledger, which really is why we call it a blockchain, and trustless consensus, which eliminates the need for a trusted third party or a centralized bank to make sure our transactions are safe. We introduced the concept of a double spend attack and why this was so important when Satoshi Nakamoto was able to solve this problem, and how it's very non-trivial in a decentralized system. And in the case of Bitcoin, the solution was proof of work consensus. And Satoshi Nakamoto really pulled together a bunch of different concepts that had been utilized in different cryptocurrency implementations in the past and made them work. And later we found out that this was also a tie-in of cryptoeconomics and other concepts as well. But this is what we covered in the first lecture. Then we got into what Bitcoin ideology is and where these ideas really stem from. And it's from the crypto anarchists and the cypherpunks and the movement to take control of our own personal data and privacy, the ability to selectively reveal personal information about yourself. And so these are the ideologies behind Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, and we saw how this really drove people to do this thing. We saw early attempts at cryptocurrency, including DigiCash, charged by David Chaum, which used public and private key cryptography, Hashcash, which used something like proof of work, and B-Money, where everyone kept a copy of the ledger. And we saw that all of these concepts popped up in Satoshi's white paper that he released in 2008. Then we saw a few notable events that happened throughout Bitcoin's history, including Halfany, in the first block, Laszlo Hanyas, who first bought the pizzas with 10,000 Bitcoin. We saw Silk Road as well as Mt. Gox, the significant scandals that brought Bitcoin a lot of attention. We saw the price go up like crazy. Then we got into our most technical lecture, which was lecture number 3. We first talked about cryptographic hash functions and how they're really integral to all of the capabilities of Bitcoin and the security behind everything. Cryptographic hash functions are, as you remember, they have pre-image resistance, second pre-image resistance, and collision resistance because of a certain degree of deterministic randomness. And this allows for things like hash puzzles. It allows for, IDs of different blocks, and it allows us to take a large piece of information and make a little digest out of it. And it's really important in Bitcoin. So this is an example, the Merkle tree that stores all the transactions. We're able to make a proof of inclusion or even show that there is something that's been tampered with, including in the blockchain itself. And this is what gives Bitcoin its tamper-evident property that we sometimes conflate with immutability. Then we talked a little bit about ECDSA and other hash functions, and we showed you how you could get from a private key to a public key hash, and finally to a Bitcoin address. This was kind of very technical and maybe just for the blockchain nerds, but it was also a fun piece of information that I thought was pretty cool. All right, lecture 4, we talked about wallets and real-world cryptocurrency and mining. So first we talked about if you have some Bitcoin or some cryptocurrency, how are you going to store it? And we explained it, well, Brian explained it through this nice meme. You can use a recommended Bitcoin wallet, such as Change My Bitcoin Wallet. I'm sure that's the wallet name. Or you could store it in a hardware wallet by, buying one from Ledger, or downloading your private key onto a USB stick and carrying that around with you. You could keep your private keys on a post-it, and you could stick it somewhere and it would only exist offline, so no one would have access to it. Or you could use a brain wallet by memorizing your private key, or you could also forget it. Or you can memorize a QR code, which is great. Or if you are really, really bought into this whole idea, you do what most people do, which is just store it on Coinbase, which isn't even decentralized. So that was a little joke. One of many memes that we put up on the screen this semester. Then we talked about mining incentives and why people mine. And the answer is usually profit. Some other answers include profit. And that's really the reason why people mine and the whole reason why Bitcoin works, as we showed you in our cryptoeconomics lecture. We showed you what ASIC farms look like, the only way that you can possibly make money out of mining nowadays, and it's also very, very environmentally unsustainable. But we talked about that later. We showed that real-world mining is mostly mining pools, and you can make a lot of money, and you can also waste a lot of money. And we talked about different strategies that pool managers use to operate their pools and divide out their mining rewards. Some had different attacks related to them, and there were further readings on that in the textbook. And we also showed you that ASIC resistance is a property that people want in designing their hash puzzles, because with mining pools like this, we see a lot of centralization, which is the opposite of what the goal of Bitcoin was. And so things like script and other hash puzzles are supposedly ASIC resistant, and we deem them to be better, and we want that to be one of our goals in designing a cryptocurrency. Lecture 5, we talked about smart contracts in Ethereum. So we introduced the idea of a smart contract, the idea of taking an agreement that you made with another person and having it controlled by a piece of code, which we trust generally. But what we want to do is take that smart contract and put it on a distributed computer so that we can then trust the execution of that code. And so Ethereum does that, but we made a comparison between Bitcoin and Ethereum, and we answered the question of why this wasn't built on top of Bitcoin in the first place. And some of the things included Bitcoin's community and how resistant to change it is. Some of it included Bitcoin's very low functionality script language that they use. And so a very smart guy, Vitalik Buterin, came in and founded Ethereum. And then we talked about how Ethereum itself works. So we talked about how smart contracts have their own accounts on Ethereum, and they act as autonomous agents that are poked using transactions and then can perform various functionalities for you. We talked about the EVM, which is the really cool part about the Ethereum distributed computer model, because everyone will run the same code in the same environment on the EVM on their own computer, and this EVM will require gas. Not like really gas, but gas is used to do certain things, such as make sure that you're not wasting computational power, that you cannot launch a denial of service attack, and that more expensive computational resources, computationally expensive whatever functions are being paid for by the person who is using this distributed computer. And then this was kind of like the money-making slide where we decided, okay, how do we decide between using a centralized solution versus a decentralized solution? And we found that Ethereum and other smart contract platforms and other blockchain solutions are really not made for efficiency. They're very redundant, they're very expensive, and they're very slow. And so we generally said that centralized databases are better when you're not sharing data, or you need to keep things confidential, you need to handle complex data, or you need efficiency. And a lot of this actually has to do with the nascent nature of blockchain just not being ready for a lot of these use cases. And so enterprise blockchain is actually a topic of debate amongst us in the academic world of blockchain on whether or not the space is really ready for enterprise solutions. Yeah. Lecture 6 was about various attacks and how to destroy Bitcoin. Had a very clickbaity title, and we did talk about a bunch of different attacks, including pool cannibalization, which is a very scary thing. We also talked about double spending and the problem where you actually aren't completely sure that your transactions are permanent in the Bitcoin blockchain. Even though the data structure itself is immutable or tamper evident at least, you are still vulnerable to a race attack. And if someone with a lot of mining power wants to go back on a transaction that they sent to you, we might want to wait a few confirmations before actually going through with that agreement. And following on that, yes, that is indeed the longest blockchain. Because remember that the network is going to accept the longest blockchain that it sees. And so you'll want to wait. Does anyone know the number, how many confirmations we want to wait? 6. Nice, someone was paying attention. We also saw blacklisting, different ways to censor the transactions that are going to be put on the Bitcoin blockchain, and there are ways to do that. But we've found that there are certain solutions to that. We had a lot of discussion around that particular subject. And selfish mining, so withholding blocks so that you get a chance to do the next block and maybe have the longest blockchain. All right, lecture 7, we did distributed systems in general and alternative consensus. It was a very exciting lecture. We got to talk about distributed systems and how they're different from centralized systems, but it's really a trade-off of what you want. So one thing that we talked about was the CAP theorem. So in a distributed system, we have a choice between 2 of consistency, availability, and partition tolerance, and we proved to you that you can only have 2 of the 3. So if you remember, if things are partition tolerant and available, they won't be consistent. So you won't have the most recent answer every time because you want it to be available. If it's partition tolerant and consistent, you can't expect it to be available all the time. And if you want it to be consistent and available, you can't allow for partition tolerance. And we showed that that was true. All right, and then we talked about the Byzantine generals problem, which has a very cool name, but is really not actually that complicated. We show that if we are in an environment where people are not controlled by any central entity and they need to communicate with one another, there are thresholds to how many people can be adversarial. And we talked about 2 different types of adversaries, ones that are not really malicious but maybe unreliable. And we also talked about actually malicious actors who are trying to destroy your network or create false messages. And one cool thing that we noticed was that you can never have more than 1/3 Byzantine fault in your distributed network. So when we talk about different types of alternative consensus, we first talk about Nakamoto consensus, which is proof of spent resources and some kind of way to show that you are invested in the network and therefore should have a decision-making ability. And so one was proof of stake. Another one that we talked about was proof of burn, which is like a more hardcore version of proof of stake. We also talked about proof of storage and proof of elapsed time. But those are more researched right now. We talked about different proof of stake implementations, including Cosmos, Tendermint, Casper, which is Ethereum's, and then various other ones such as Lisk and Neo. And we found that proof of stake in theory was great. It was more environmentally efficient. It didn't require wasting resources all the time, so it would be more environmentally friendly. It sounded better in general and solved a lot of proof of works problems, but there were also problems with the rich get richer. So there was a trade-off that was going on. We also looked at the nothing at stake problem, which was something that doesn't exist in proof of work, but because in proof of stake you're not expending resources, there might be a chance for you to be voting on two chains, which we never want. And so there's things like slashing that are going to penalize things like this, and that's why proof of stake is a lot more complicated than we would expect it to be. Brian also talked about 3 other different types of alternative consensus: PAXOS, the one that nobody understands; RAFT, that is a little bit better; and federated consensus, which had a lot of really pretty diagrams and quorum slices. All right, and then was our cryptoeconomics lecture. So this was another thing that had a very cool name, but actually wasn't that complicated. So we proved that by first starting out with a very simple midterm studying example in which we aligned professor incentives with student incentives and got what both people wanted using the same incentive scheme. So here it was trying to get students to study in groups so that students got higher scores and students learned the material better. And then we talked about what cryptoeconomics is in relation to cryptocurrencies. And we showed you that the definition of cryptoeconomics is not cryptography plus economics, but rather a kind of application of both of them in order to design a system that works to align incentives and make people act in a certain way. So we would use cryptography for security and economics for incentive alignment. Then we talked about enterprise blockchain use cases, and this was our Halloween lecture, I believe, so we gave out candy. And we said that there's 3 different types, well, Justin did. Justin talked about the 3 broad classifications of enterprise blockchain use cases: solving coordination failures, so getting everybody together in the same system to solve some kind of problem with data silos; horizontal integration, again, getting everyone together to make things more efficient; and creating self-sovereign, decentralized networks. So decentralization in general, which is great in our opinion. And we saw there are different types of ledgers. So we have public blockchains, which is more decentralized, which has that anonymity that we might want, such as Bitcoin, Litecoin, Ethereum, Garlic Coin, I've never heard of that. And then there are permissioned ledgers, which people come in and say, okay, we want some of our data to be confidential. We don't want anybody just coming into the system. We don't want Sybil attacks. We want to control this blockchain. And we had an argument over whether or not these are actually blockchains, but they exist in plenty. And some of them that we've heard of are Hyperledger, Quorum. Some other big names include Enterprise Ethereum Alliance, which is a bunch of big companies trying to do research together and make money together, and Consensus, which is doing a lot of research in Ethereum and blockchain. Now we looked at automotive use cases, mostly supply chain or IoT, cool stuff, peer-to-peer, blah, blah, blah. Banks and financial institutions, we looked at Ripple, which is trying to help banks not die because of cryptocurrencies. Just kidding. And then we looked at different attitudes from different banks in cryptocurrency, as we saw that cryptocurrency was the biggest threat to these financial institutions. We also looked at some great social good use cases, including financial inclusion, supply chain, identity management, and voting. We did energy and the environment, and we did donation tracking. And these were all great ideas, but there were a lot of problems with them. That was the general gist of that lecture. All right, so we looked at all the things that we can do with blockchain, and then we kept putting this diagram on the screen over and over again, and I'm sure you guys got tired of seeing it because it kind of just doesn't say much, but we like to throw it at you all the time, and it's this scalability trilemma in the case where we have decentralization, we want that, and then we have to choose between scalability and security, and in the general case, we don't get scalability. And in general, we just wanted to give you an excuse as to why blockchains aren't scalable. But we talked about different scaling techniques, but first we classified them because we like to classify things. So vertical scaling was the idea of letting each portion be able to do more work, or adding more RAM or CPU power to an existing machine, so everyone can do more work by themselves. Horizontal scaling, which means if you add more people to the entire network, then that means more ability to do things, or adding more computational power horizontally. I don't know how else to explain it. And then diagonal scaling, which I just learned about, which is adding more powerful machines. So I guess in both directions. All right, and we also talked about how there's two different layers. So layer one would be just changing the protocol itself, such as adding more block size or more transactions per second, or making it more fast, the block times faster. And then layer two would be something off-chain, so pushing things off the chain, such as side chains, such as payment channels, things like that. And so we had this cool little diagram, and we showed you a bunch of different scaling techniques that are being implemented. Some of them, like I said, include the protocol itself, such as playing around with the block size or the block time. SegWit does this a little bit, and other protocols as well. Then we looked at cool things like Lightning Network and Raiden and Plasma, which do layer 2 vertical scaling. And then we looked at Plasma as well, and Cosmos and sidechains, which are layer 2 horizontal scaling. So that was our scalability lecture. Then we talked about anonymity, another very relevant topic in the blockchain space and also very argued about. And we wanted to show you that anonymity is not just a goal of drug dealers or criminals wanting to use an anonymous cryptocurrency. It's also a problem with fungibility. So we want economically our dollars to be worth the same wherever we get them from or wherever we want to spend them. And we looked at different de-anonymization techniques, so linking someone's Bitcoin address to a real-world address. And we saw that this has actually been done before, and it's not actually that hard. And if you make one little mistake, or if you transact with someone who makes one little mistake, you can be de-anonymized. So there's never any guarantee in Bitcoin specifically of the anonymization or whatever of your accounts and your money that you're spending. So we talked about coin join and money laundering and how it's great. And so the idea was we would mix transactions together so that it would be harder to track. Not impossible, but harder. We talked about 3 different privacy-centric altcoins, including Dash, which does a automatic coin join technique, Monero, which does ring signatures, the cool fountain that I did, and Zcash, which uses zero-knowledge proofs. And then this was the last meme that I showed you guys, I think, in which we talked about how something that introduces more privacy to a cryptocurrency sometimes makes it less scalable. And so there's another trade-off that we have to do, but there's something called Mimblewimble, which does both, which is great. So that was everything. We did it in 20 minutes. That was everything that we've learned this semester, and it's a lot. It actually really is a lot. If you were paying attention the entire semester, you learned a lot, and you're now a Bitcoin expert, really. You know more than 99.999% of the people in this city about, or in the world in this city, whatever you want to say, you're a blockchain expert now. You can explain it to whoever you want. This happens all the time. I'll be in a cafe, and these 2 people will be on a date, and then this girl will be like, oh, like, have you heard of Bitcoin? And then he'll be like, oh, yeah, like, it's, like, stupid. Like, and then she'll be like, oh, like, I don't actually understand it, but, like, my friend made so much money off of it. And he'll be like, oh, dude, it's, like, this guy called, like, this Japanese guy, like, he made some like really efficient payment protocol, and like now everyone uses it, and it's like the money of the future. And then he explains the protocol all wrongly to her. And then you can then ruin the date by telling them how Bitcoin works. Or if you see a guy in a suit, he's got like gray hair and he's like all important and he's an executive, blah 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 blah, and he's like, oh yeah, I'm an investor, I'm looking to invest in, you know, you can tell him why such and such is bullshit and why such and such is a good idea. You're able to do that now. Just have the confidence because you've taken this class and you can do it. But anyways, I wanted to read to you a story written by Max a long time ago about what can happen in the future when blockchain becomes mainstream. All right, here goes. When you are born, your biometric information is used to generate a cryptographic identity. Your fingerprint, retinal scan, and other confirmation is used to access your personal information, including health records, your digital wallet, certifications, and official records. It's impossible for your identity to be lost or destroyed, and you control access to all the data you generate. This morning, you leave the apartment where you spent the night, and as you leave, sensors detect your departure, and Slocket's smart contract confirms you didn't break anything and pays back your security deposit. Okay. You order a coffee from Pete's on your smartphone. The coffee has an entire supply chain history, including a fair trade certification. I added a little bit to the story. And a soil analysis from the farm the coffee beans were harvested from. Your purchase also includes the option for purchasing carbon offsets for the coffee's carbon footprint, and you take that option. Many products include this option, as well as other micro donations embedded into the price that offset carbon, water, or contribute to charitable causes. You can see where the donations go because they go through a public cryptocurrency. All right, you call your car, but it's not really yours. It's plugged into an autonomous ad hoc swarm of vehicles readily available for use. Accidents are rare, but when they do happen, the insurance agency analyzes video footage via a machine learning trained bot and automatically gives the victim in the accident the appropriate payment. Except it's not actually an insurance agency. It's a smart contract that pools together the funds of a multitude of owners and charges people the exact expected value of car insurance, taking no profit. The near exact probability of accidents is known because every accident that has ever happened is recorded on the blockchain. Okay, so this is the car crash. It's not actually an insurance policy, it's an insurance smart contract. All right. Okay, you head off to your company headquarters to work for the day, except your work isn't really work, it's all voluntary because the blockchain ensures a universal basic income for everyone. And you're an engineer and researcher by trade, primarily because you want to help push the boundaries of human knowledge. Your company isn't really a company either. It's a decentralized autonomous organization consisting of individuals from around the world who voluntarily signed up, receive compensation, and pay raises based off the quantity and quality of their research findings as determined by a worldwide Oracle network, and who can exit their contract at any time. Your company itself receives revenue over time as measured by the net benefit to society your research brings. Wow, decentralization. That's you. And it's a DAO. All right. For the few, this part is the cool part. For the few functions of society left that still require a government, it's run by a democratic futarchy where the markets decide which policies should be implemented, completely removing the possibility of corrupt politicians who know little to nothing about the fields they write legislation for. And that's the decentralized future of blockchain. Okay. Okay. All right, but realistically, we'll see blockchain happen mostly behind the scenes. Let's say we have automatic payments that happen through the various items that we own, through our cars, through the various places that we go to. Our appliances will have smart furniture, smart appliances in our kitchens, whatever it is, and blockchain will just be behind the scenes. That's a more realistic depiction of the future. But before all this can happen, we need to talk about the problems with blockchain. You can probably already think of a few. Does anyone have ideas? Some problems that you've seen throughout the course? Reasons why you feel like blockchain is bullshit? Lack of what? Lack of technology in third world countries. Yeah. It's an integration problem, yeah. Anyone else? Come on, there's so many problems with blockchain. Yeah. Yeah, right? I mean, yeah, it's also an ideology thing. It's like, do we really want decentralize this and decentralize that, or centralize better? Yeah. But problems with the technology itself exist as well, right? Yeah. So I generally classify the problems with blockchain, which is a very general category, into three different things. Technical shortcomings from the technology itself, mostly resulting from the fact that it's very new. It's only been around for 10 years and maybe research for a couple at most. It'll take a while before some of these problems are solved. Those are just will be solved with time. Non-blockchain challenges, which kind of fuck with the efficacy of blockchain. So secure data entry is an example. I suppose that would also be an example with lack of technology in different countries, and then barriers to adoption. So I'll talk a little bit more about these. So technical shortcomings, the biggest problem is scalability. If you look at Bitcoin versus PayPal or Visa, Bitcoin is like laughable compared to Visa, and it's just not acceptable for us to have a payment system that's only this slow, basically. So that's a problem. But luckily, I think scalability is probably the most researched topic in the blockchain space, and there's so many smart people working on it today. And we've already shown you a bunch of different implementations. Ha ha ha, it's this diagram again. Okay, and then privacy. So another thing that we struggle with is the fact that maybe public blockchains are not really ideal. Maybe transparency is not what we want, and we want some things to be confidential and some things to be private. And that's the case for most business applications and most of the things that we're interested in. Luckily, cryptography and cryptocurrencies and blockchain tie very well together. There's a lot of research going into trusted execution environments and various cryptographic techniques in order to keep things private. So that's another shortcoming. And then we go into non-blockchain challenges. We talked about secure data entry. I actually prepared some slides. I call this, oh, okay, hold on. So before we get to that, so we have various problems with secure data entry in which, let's say we have an online voting platform or we have a supply chain data, and we can't really guarantee that we're putting in good data into this immutable blockchain. We can't guarantee that the data we're actually storing is really good data, and that's often the actual problem that we're trying to solve. So we have to secure the endpoints, so the points in which data actually comes into the blockchain. That's what we're concerned about. And the cool thing is there's some ideas on how to solve this without introducing a trusted third party at least. And one of them is hardware oracles. This particular one on the left side of the screen is a diagram from an article published by Ledger. If you want to read it and check it out, that'll be pretty cool. The idea is, you know, it'll be secure and not be tampered with when you're putting data into the blockchain, and you'd be able to pair it up with some kind of encrypted RFID tags so that everything is automatic and everything is tamper evident. Obviously, I think security is never like an absolute thing, just like anonymity, just like a lot of other things, and so there's kind of like a threshold that you can reach and a guarantee that you can make, but it's never 100% foolproof. But I really like this group of slides. Brian and I think we like came up with this and we call it the grapes problem. So we were like, all right, we have secure hardware oracle, and it's going to automatically scan everything. We have encrypted tamper evident RFID tags. These tags are going to always collect all of the data, and they're going to tell you when they're tampered with. And we were like, great, how do we use this for grapes? So let's put one on each crate of grapes. And then I was like, all right, what happens when you just take the grapes out of the crate? The crate hasn't been tampered with. All right, okay. So we'll put one on each bunch of grapes. So you can't tamper with the grapes themselves. Okay, but what if you put it on one of the grapes, but then you ate all of the other grapes, and then like you just end up with this empty vine? So, okay, and then we were like, okay, what if we put one on each grape? That will make sure that everything is tamper resistant. Okay, but my point is that there is no way to guarantee anything, and you're always going to have to pick a point at which you're satisfied with that being what you're good with. So you're like, okay, anything beyond this, I'm okay with it being fucked with, but I'm going to guarantee this particular threshold. But nobody laughed, but okay. Okay, and so another barrier to adoption is most blockchain use cases only work if everybody does it. So supply chain, all right, let's say one company does it. It doesn't work because you're trying to get the whole supply chain. If anything goes through where it doesn't go through one of the systems that is blockchain enabled, then it doesn't have a history on the blockchain. Same thing with energy or all the grids that we want. Cryptocurrencies, we won't be able to reach everything until we've reached, like you said, the third world countries. We can't do financial inclusion until we can get cryptocurrency even farther than how much the banks have gotten and traditional banking systems have gotten. And so that's a problem. How do we get everyone to use the system? I came up with a few ideas. We can have the government force everyone to do it. And then centralization, okay? Or less centralization, but equally also centralization. We get the large corporations to get everyone to do it. So we call this integration by consortium. But, you know, I think that nobody is going to be like, yes, blockchain, the more expensive, slow, inefficient option. I'm going to go with that one, even though nobody told me to do it. But I think most use cases right now, at least, are if the government says, we're going to give a law, we're going to pass a law where you have to do this, then it's going to happen. But this is just a barrier that I have a problem with. Another problem that I see is a lot of blockchain applications have really terrible UI UX. There's not enough designers in this space. That's a problem. And so one thing that I like to say is, right now, what we like to say is, oh, it has blockchain. We're using blockchain. And then suddenly people are like, wow, great. And that's like enough to sell it. But we're already reaching like the end of that curve where blockchain is no longer like a magic word that you can just stick on the box and have it be worth more money. And I think that's a good thing, because once we actually see something with blockchain, but putting blockchain in the background and just making it better, that's when it'll achieve mass adoption, is when we actually solve all these problems and we show that a blockchain-enabled solution is faster and more efficient, it's cheaper, blah, blah, blah. Those, or it's easier to use, it's better designed, whatever it is, those are the things that are going to make someone actually use it, or, you know, the adoption curve of like early adopters, innovators, like the majority in the middle. Have you seen that curve where it's like a bell curve? I can't remember what it was, but like innovators, early adopters, early majority, late majority, laggards. Yeah, that's where it is. If you want to get all of them, that's what you need. Sorry, that was a really long rant. But that's what I was trying to get at. And then another barrier to adoption, I was really trying to like make this like slide deck a little more engaging, just because the past few weeks I'll like put up something that I think is really funny and then everyone's just like, and I'm like trying to make eye contact, but everyone's just like, so like maybe once like I'll give a lecture where I'm just looking at this and then like you guys can see what it's like for me to look at you. But okay, the point of this slide is to show you how this is people's reactions when you say anonymous, like decentralized, Silk Road, Bitcoin is for drugs. And so Bitcoin just has like this terrible reputation for being for criminals and for drugs and all that, and for Mt. Gox and, you know, the money tanking. I took this screenshot from Coinbase, and Bitcoin has gone down 59.6% over the last year, which is not what people want. And so this is also a barrier to adoption, in that new technologies are scary. No matter how great or innovative or well-intended they are, we see problems like this with even like medical advancements, where people are resistant to try out new medical treatments because they're scary, or they have like one bad scandal that happened. And so this is very much the case for any technology, and this is why we offer this course and why we will continue to offer it forever and ever as long as we can, because we're interested in making sure that everybody knows that blockchain is great. Like, there's so many problems with it, but we want you to have your own mental model of what blockchain is and what Bitcoin is, and be educated in making educated decisions on whether or not you want to choose to use this technology and what it'll look like for the future, and hopefully you can spread your own ideas to the people that you know. Even if you have a bad impression of the technology, maybe you just had a really shitty experience with this class and you hate, you know, blockchain and everything in general, at least you know a little bit more about it, and that's always the first step. All right, we're almost at the end. This is how to get involved. work in the blockchain space. So I think a lot of us, like I just said, we've taken this class, we've learned a bunch about blockchain, now we have our own ideas as to whether or not we think it has a place in our future, and if it does, what kind of future it's going to help build. And so working in the blockchain space is one of the most effective ways for you to have an impact on the world. I always say that I'm a CS major because I want to help build the future. The future's going to be built with software, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And I've recently seen that we have different choices in what we want to work on internships for, or what we want to get a job in after we graduate. And sometimes it's working as a little cog in a machine in a large company where you are using your degree to help make the company like 0. whatever % more efficient, or you're helping someone's life be easier, or whatever it is. In general, I think that we're all going to do great things when we graduate, but I realize that we could spend the same amount of time in a space like blockchain and have a much bigger impact on the world. That's what I believe, at least. I don't really have a very eloquent way of stating that, but I feel like if you want to build the future, this is the right place to be. Or you could work to solve the non-blockchain problems. So I've thought about, you know, what if I suck at cryptography? What if I suck at CS? Crap, I don't know how to do this. And I can't code very much. And so it's like, what can I still do to help the blockchain space? And like I showed you, there are a lot of problems that are not blockchain related that are going to help build this blockchain-enabled future. There's a lot of goals that we're going towards that don't really involve blockchain at all. It's really just a matter of either coordination or getting people to use technology more or whatever it is. And a lot of it doesn't have to do with blockchain itself. But there's a lot of ways to make this world a better place. Oh, this is coming so cheesy. Oh my god. Okay, but let's say you don't want to do this. You don't want to work in the blockchain space. You already have an internship, whatever. You're going to work at Google, whatever it is. Join Blockchain at Berkeley. So one of the reasons we offer this course is to bait you guys into joining our organization. We already got most of you, or some of you, taking this course, so we got you already. But, you know, it is, if you took this course and you found like, wow, blockchain is very interesting, or you want to solve one of these problems, and you're like me and you can't actually get a job, so you join Blockchain at Berkeley. And we offer these great programs. We do consulting where we teach different companies and how they can use a lot of their money to help the blockchain space. We do a little bit of protocol level research and helping solve these blockchain related problems. And we also do education, which I think is one of our most important things that we do. If you want to teach this course, by the way, let me know. And we also do design, which I think is really interesting part of our organization. But we really try to offer this course as much as we can because we find that a lot of people are interested in blockchain, and we want to take part in kicking off your blockchain adventure. All right, this is the most exciting part. If you don't want to join Blockchain at Berkeley, you don't want to get a job, take our next course. We're thinking about offering the Blockchain for Developers course. I think some of you were interested in that. Maybe a few. Yes? Yes. I think, well, you would need to know how to code. So let's say you've taken like 61B, 61A, probably 61B is what we would require. And then you will have to have taken this course. Yeah.
I'm talking about 61A and no coding experience. It's really hard. but it's doable.
Yeah. We would never stop you from anything. Like, this is our general philosophy at Blockchain at Berkeley, is we never force anyone to do anything. We never, block anyone from doing anything that they want to do. But if you want to make your life difficult, by all means, if it's for the good of the blockchain, do it. Okay. And, yes. So we actually won't be offering it as a decal next semester. I think we might do it as edX or edX plus workshops. So it won't be for credit. Yeah. But I think in the future, not spring 2019, but future, we might offer it for credit. And then we are also developing a fundamentals part 2. So for all of you who felt like this class wasn't technical enough, you looked at the slides, you were waiting for some particular topic to be deeply dived into, and we never got to it. I was equally disappointed that we didn't never get to it. And so we are making a fundamentals part 2. So that's going to happen. Maybe, I think we will offer it in fall 2019, latest spring 2020. So take our next course. Would you take it if we offered it? Okay. Just wanted to see that. If you don't want to take our next course, you should join our Discord. At least stay as a part of our community, you know? Anytime you see a cool article, or anytime you're on break and you're bored and you're like, I just want to have a conversation about blockchain right now, because I feel that all the time. You go on our Discord and you talk to Jason, who runs it.
Don't join me.
So there's always a lot of really, there's always a lot of really cool dialogue happening on Discord. 90% of it is just Jason. But so we're looking to have more vibrant community on Discord, and you guys can be a part of that. So this is the bare minimum. If you're not willing to work in the blockchain space, you're not willing to look at a job and you're not willing to work at blockchain at Berkeley, and you won't even take our next course, at least join our Discord. At the very least. So I see a lot of you are on your laptops. I do not know what you are doing, but I would appreciate it if you went to tinyurl.com/babdiscord right now. And then raise your hand when you're done. I'm just going to sit here and wait for all the hands to go up. Are we all done? We all joined the BAB Discord? We did it? Good for you. All right. Here's your attendance form. Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you guys. Yeah?
You guys affiliated with the CRYPTOECONOMICS class, CS like 294?
We are not affiliated with it, but a bunch of us have taken it. Huh? Oh, we might teach our own.
Wait, no, the 294
What?
is like offered through like
Dawn, yeah.
There's like two of them. The one of them is like the one that's like offered directly between each business and law, and then there's like a more technical version, which is actually more like research heavy, as in like they go into more topics that are research heavy. So like it's like more math. I would say that those courses, those are it's not like affiliated with like CAB at all. I took I'm taking the one that's like more like mathematical right now, but it's not really well run. But the other one is because it's like offered through like the law school, the hospital.
Is that the one Max teaches?
No. Like, you taught like a summer one for just.
Oh, yeah.
The 294 one is, that one is just like, it's more like high level broad because it encompasses people from the law.
It's only open to the law business.
I think so. The idea is that like I think at the end it's like a more project based course. Like you have to like pitch like kind of like a project and at least like create an MVP of your project at the end. The one that's like on just CRYPTOECONOMICS but not the business and law, that one is creating like a project that's more research.
Yeah. Okay, I just wanted to say thank you so much for especially coming today and taking our class. I think this Wednesday night is just the best way to spend our Wednesday night learning about blockchain together. I had a lot of fun making these slides and talking up here and just ranting sometimes and just talking about whatever I want to talk about, and the fact that you guys will actually come here and listen to me is just so heartwarming. And so I just wanted to thank you guys for taking this class. I think we have a course evaluation if you want to take it, and please do take our class in the future. So thank you.